gosh. All right. Shalom Chabrim, I'm Stephen Ben-Nun. You're watching Israeli News Live, and today we have a very special guest with us, Carolyn Hyde from Israel, and we're going to be talking together with my wife Yana. We're going to be speaking about some of the persecutions that believers go through in the state of Israel. Of course, we've got many friends that are believers in Israel, and we've spoken to others in the past and what they go through and their perspectives on this. But we saw a very interesting article about Carolyn and her husband in Charisma magazine not too long ago, and that inspired us to reach out to them so we could share with you guys what actually goes on for believers and other believers as well in Israel, what they have suffered for their belief in Yeshua as the Moshiach. Go ahead.
Hello, Carolyn. Welcome.
Shalom.
Shalom.
Tada. Thank you.
Yes, and can you tell us a little bit about yourself? You are American Jewish, right? You have American Israeli, and just tell us more about yourself so people know who you are.
Yeah, I am a Jewish believer in Yeshua, first of all. I have dual citizenship. I was born near Chicago. I grew up in an Orthodox synagogue there near Chicago, and we made Aliyah 15 years ago.
Okay.
I have with my husband, and we have 5 children, and thank God all of them are here in Israel, and we have 10 grandchildren.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Congratulations.
Yes.
Yes, wonderful. So recently you have been talking about some persecution that Israeli believers go through in Israel. So I would like for you to expand on that. What is really happening there? So I would like for you to expand to as much as you can, as you think it's safe, because we need to know that, because what happens is that Christian community in United States, the Israeli government unconditional support, and they're supporting anything they do, their wars and all that. And then Netanyahu comes out and says, we are the only democracy in Middle East, and the freedom of religion and everything, so beautifully said, and Christians believe it, but they're not aware this is not true. That's not real.
That's true.
That's
true.
It's not true. It's just a front. And they're giving this support to Israeli government while our own are persecuted there.
Okay. Well, when we first made Aliyah, I got, of course, citizenship, everything, all the benefits and everything, because I had all the documents. All 4 of my grandparents were Orthodox Jews, and I had all the documentation, so no problem. Got citizenship, and now, and of course, I got an Israeli passport. So after 7 years, you have to go in and get a new passport, like for 10 years, a 10-year passport. So I went in, and they said, no, we're not giving you a passport. We're not renewing it.
Wow. And what was the reason?
And, well, they were saying, because actually, this is the funny thing. They actually never gave me a reason.
They never.
I knew pretty much why, but they never really did give me a reason. They just didn't want to. So then I called our lawyer, Caleb Myers, from the Jerusalem Institute of Justice, and he gave me a number to call, and within a week, I got a phone call from the Misrat Panim, the Ministry of Interior. Oh, you can come in, your passport's ready.
Oh, wow.
So I went in, and when I got there, they said, no, we're not giving you your passport.
Wow.
And I was like, what kind of game is this?
Yes.
Because at that time, both my sons were serving in the IDF, and, they each did 3 years each in the Army. And so I said, well, what is this? And they said, well, you have to have an interview.
Okay.
So they took me back in this room, and the lady was, sitting across from me like I'm sitting across from you, and she was asking me questions from a paper to her side and then typing the answers in. And so I got up and looked over the desk to see, what was this paper, and I could read it upside down, the headline on the paper. said Yad Lachem.
Oh, wow.
And that's a violent group that absolutely hates pretty much everyone, but especially Jewish believers in Yeshua. Okay. So so I told her, because I knew this, there was a recent ruling in Israel back in that time. I told her, this is against the law.
Right.
You're not allowed to ask questions or do or receive information from a non-governmental source and use that and hold that against me as a citizen.
Right.
And she kind of blushed. She realized I was right, and the interview ended. And so then they just gave me a sticker for 1 year.
Oh.
So for the next 7 years, every year I had to go back to the Misrad Panim and renew my sticker. And it's kind of a hassle, but, I thought, okay, it's not a big deal. I guess I can live with this. And so last year, though, not last year, it was in January, because we were about to take a trip in February to Guatemala and to Central America. And so I went in to get my usual sticker, and they said, no, we're not giving you anything.
So not even a sticker. So how can they get away with it if, on one hand, the civil law, right, in Israel says that it belongs to you because you are a citizen of Israel?
I was already a citizen for 14 and a half years.
Exactly.
And so
how can
they told me that they were not going to give it, and that they were going to try to remove my citizenship. And now I already knew about the case of our son, Ariel. Perhaps you've seen what he's done. He heads up a site called Medabrim, which means people are saying or people are speaking. It's a site on Facebook, and on that site are videos on social media. One that's quite well known, it's Yeshayahu Nun Gimel, it's Isaiah 53, the forbidden chapter. And a lot of people have seen that. In fact, over 7 million people have seen it. But what's really exciting is over 1 million Israelis have seen it.
That is exciting.
And so it's caused quite a stir here, and people are posting it on each other's websites and on each other's. It's just gotten around.
Right.
And because of that, also, how it is on Facebook, you can make comments. So of course we've gotten our share of curses, typical, but we've also gotten a lot of people who write in and say, "Hey, I want to know more."
That is amazing.
That is wonderful.
That is amazing.
And yeah, it really is. And so both of our sons have been working on this, and we actually hired a number of other Israelis. We've got 5 people who are working full-time on this now, answering questions, meeting people, just, as people have questions, like, how can we help?
So what happened to your son with this? Did anything happen to him?
Well, yes. Actually, it started with Ariel. Okay. He's the real troublemaker. Our older son. No, he's not a troublemaker.
He's got a beautiful name. My daughter is Ariel. I just had to say that.
Yeah, it's a good name. Well, he really is a lion of God.
Yes.
So his wife, Shayla, who is not Jewish, when you get married to somebody, if you're not Jewish, but you're married to a Jewish Israeli, like our son, within a very short time, you should get a work visa. You don't get citizenship right away, but, you get health insurance, you get, a lot of rights. You should get a teratzut after a short time, an identity card. And they gave her nothing.
Wow.
And it's already been over 8 years.
Where is she from?
She's American.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing that we're seeing.
That's been a court battle.
Right, we're seeing this more and more and more.
Yeah. And she couldn't leave the country. I mean, her sister got married. She couldn't go to the wedding. One of even her brother. No, she was able to go to that because that just happened recently. But one of her grandparents passed away. She couldn't. If she left the country during this time, a certain time frame, she wouldn't be able to get back in. And actually, what they said to Shayla last year, I think it was, they said, you have until June, and then you have to leave the country. And they had 3 kids at the time. She just gave birth to their 4th kid. So, like, they're trying to separate families? That's
something. That is. And that happens only
right.
to believers in Yeshua,
yes,
right?
yes.
Because does it happen to atheists or any other faith in Israel?
No. That doesn't happen to them.
So it seems like it's a targeted
but what happened, it's actually the train, because, obviously we had to get Shayla a lawyer quickly because it was urgent for her. Because her visa was going to expire and she would be here illegally, even though she's married for all these years to our son. It's crazy. Yeah. So they had to get a lawyer. And then we found out, while they were in court, that the Misrat Pnim decided, let's go after the source, the Jewish mother, of these two boys.
Right.
And if we can take away her citizenship, then we can kick out, my husband, who's not Jewish, and then we can kick out everybody. And this is when we came to understand that this is not about us. It's about the body of Messiah here in Israel, because if they could get a precedent-setting case like this of somebody here for all those years who both sons served faithfully in the IDF and removed their citizenship. And just on a side note, there was a case not too long ago of some terrorist who committed a brutal act, just horrific, an Arab Israeli, but an Israeli citizen who did this act of terror. And in his court case, the other side put it forth that we should remove his citizenship. He was born here, but, and they said it's horrible what he did. And the judge said no.
He said no to the
that this is only reserved for the worst of the worst cases.
Which is the believers of the Messiah.
Well, here's the thing, though, and I can tell you why. I can tell you why. This is where the political side of this is getting really, really bad. Because in Judaism, it is believed, and it is shared with the Orthodox community, that a Muslim, any Arab that is a Muslim, that they believe that they are not violating the law of idolatry from a Noahide standpoint, and that is Noahide, which is Talmudic, and
So because that's a real injustice to tell the wife of an Israeli that when they've already had 3 kids that you have to leave and never come back.
Right. So that happened
to his Gentile wife. That's just wrong. That's that's evil. That's separating families.
Yes,
and that should never happen.
So that happened because he runs that Facebook where he defends Yeshua, and they know obviously everything goes through control.
Oh, he's very clearly on this video on Isaiah 53. I think part of the reason we got targeted for that is because Facebook goes everywhere, but there are 2 laws in Israel about evangelism.
Okay.
And one is that you cannot share Messiah with someone under the age of 18 unless you're under 18. And the other one is I can't give you money or something and then say, here, let me tell you about Yeshua.
Okay.
And we understand that and we respect those laws. We are, as Israeli citizens, we obey the laws of the land.
Do you have a passport? Are you able to?
Well, let me tell you what happened, because this is where God stepped in. So, as I mentioned, in February, we were about to make a trip to Central America, and we do a lot of Hasbara. We speak on behalf of Israel. It's like Hasbara is public relations on behalf of Israel. We do this in churches. We invite tour groups into our home here in the Galilee, and we tell people good things about Israel. We want people, we're trying to raise up informed intercessors for Israel. That's our hope. Because we have enough enemies, so we need some friends. So we're making this trip. I went in, they wouldn't give me the sticker. And so then they said they wanted to interview me, which, was from way back, again.
I know.
And this time they said they wanted to interview not only me, but my husband and our youngest daughter. And it was like, why are you getting her involved? And so we called our lawyer. We had a different lawyer this time for this particular season because Karen Davis, a friend she's a worship leader from Keilat Carmel, she told me she had a similar problem and she used this lawyer. So, so he jumped in the car from Haifa. He came. We went to the interview. After the interview, the lawyer said, you might want to consider packing your bags and leaving.
Wow.
And I thought, now, if you knew our Aliyah story, and maybe if we have time, I'll share that with you, there's no way. There's no way we're leaving because it was such a strong message how the Lord called us to live in Israel. That there's no way he would bring us here only to have us thrown out. So I was pretty despondent and got home after that, and I was just, like, okay, what are we going to do? And so I picked up my guitar and just began to worship. When in doubt, worship the Lord. It's always the best thing to do. So for like an hour, I was just prophetic worship and just, singing my heart out to the Lord and not really asking for anything, just worshiping him. That's all. After an hour, the phone rang. It was the Misrata Panim. Mm-hmm. And they said, you can come in and get your passport. It was like, what? So, okay, that's good news. So it was too late to go that day. So the next morning, I got up early. And before I went there, the Lord spoke to me and said, I want you to bring 2 nails with you. 2 long nails. And drive them into the ground in front of the Ministry of Interior. Mm-hmm. And repent, because your bloodline has cursed me. And, growing up in an Orthodox synagogue and with all my background and everything,
that's true.
I'm sure. I know for a fact I cursed Yeshua when I was growing up. And, just because kids would throw rocks at me, call me a Christ killer, things like this that happened all the time, and I'm sure you had that too. And so it's, we cursed him, but it's in our bloodline. Mm. So I've had stranger requests from the Lord, so that was okay. So I got 2 long nails, and I went there, and I just prayer walked a little bit, asked the Lord to make me invisible, which he did. And then I just got down on my knees and drove those 2 nails in the ground and asked the Lord to forgive me and forgive all my ancestors for cursing Yeshua. Yeah. And then I walked right in there and got my passport. And then right before we left for Central America, we put out a newsletter and explained what happened. And while we were gone, I don't know if it's because of this act, but while we were gone, I heard from several friends that at Christ Church in Jerusalem, there was a meeting of Messianic leaders from all over Israel who got together and did the same thing.
Wow,
they repented for their bloodlines cursing Yeshua.
That is amazing.
And so, how God gives the same brilliant idea to different people at the same time. Yeah. So I don't know who it came from. Doesn't matter. It's the right thing to do. Because this is the kind of thing that moves heaven and earth.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
That's beautiful. Very beautiful.
That speaks to my heart so heavily.
It really does.
I can't tell you how much. I'm just in my heart just...
Yeah. Because our desire is that Israel wakes up to who their Messiah is. And we know not all of them will, but there is a remnant there. That the Lord has a remnant in Israel. And we are to speak to them about Yeshua. There are some pastors that say, don't talk about Jesus to Jews. And we are against that. Because they need to hear about who their who their Messiah is, who Yeshua is.
But they need to do it with sensitivity.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And there needs to be a little bit of training so that, because, there are people who come here and think they're going to get all Israel saved, and they start preaching, a Gentile Jesus, pretty much. Yeah. And so there's a little teaching. There's ignorance on both sides.
Yeah.
We all have our blind spots. But, people always talk about the blinders on the Jewish people, but, the church has plenty of blinders too.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest problem, is that the church took the Jewish Jesus and Yeshua, and put blonde hair on him, gave him blue eyes, and he speaks King James English. And we Israelis are looking at this going, and that's supposed to be our Messiah? He doesn't even speak Hebrew? And, who is this guy? So it's a problem on both sides. But thank God the blinders are coming off. And, people often ask me, so how do I share Messiah? Christians will ask when we have groups in our home. And I always tell them, well, what does the scripture say? Provoke us to jealousy.
Yes.
The church has done plenty of provoking, not to jealousy, though.
That's right. That's right.
To wrath, to anger. But provoke us to jealousy. And when you, celebrate Shabbat, or you do a Passover, or you come to Israel.
That's a good advice.
I think in reality, too, when we talk about provoking the Jewish people to jealousy, it's when you live that life for the Moshiach, when you live that life for Him, and then He is blessing His people. It doesn't take the words, it's the actions and the response of God Himself coming down and blessing those people. The Israeli people see that, they know it. But as you also mentioned too, there's a blinder upon many of the Gentiles, and I've used that analogy, the very words of Yeshua, very frequently here recently when he says, if the blind lead the blind, don't they both fall in the ditch?
Yeah.
It is. But at the same time, there is a move here in Israel of many, many Orthodox and secular too, who are genuinely hungry for the truth. And this is the thing. And honestly, I loved growing up Jewish. I love being Jewish. And I'm still Jewish, and we're getting ready for Rosh Hashanah, and we fast on Yom Kippur, and we keep the feasts, not in a legalistic way, but because we love it.
Yes. And
because we see Yeshua in the midst of all the feasts. And He's really the center. And so, what was I going to say? Oh, yes, about the hunger. And one time, I was taking a worship watch at, Sukkot Hallel in Jerusalem with Rick and Patty Ridings, really good people. And I had the shift from 10 p.m. to midnight. So about halfway through the shift, a young man walked in, and clearly ultra-Orthodox, dati to the max. And of course, the first thought that came to me was, oh no, not another Gentile who's trying to be an Orthodox Jew. But he sat in the back, and I could just tell from, I kept peeking over at him, I could just tell, no, I think he's the real thing. But, I continued my worship watch, and right at midnight when I was finished, I went straight back to him and asked him, Mi'ata, who are you? And he began to explain, his father is the chief rabbi of one of the biggest yeshivot in Jerusalem. And he had a vision of Yeshua.
Wow.
And he came to faith.
That is amazing.
And he would come out at night, just like Nicodemus,
Yes.
to worship and pray. And there are a lot of reports of things like this happening. There are many, many secret believers
And
here
you know what,
in Israel.
Carolyn, it's not only Jews, it's also Muslims. They have this kind of experiences.
Oh, absolutely. Muslims do too.
Yeah, Muslims,
Yes.
because I was reading a lot of Muslims coming to Christ. And one Messianic group in Israel is going frequently to Gaza, and they're saying in Gaza a lot of Muslims are coming to Christ.
Yes.
And so in the midst of all these turmoil that's happening there, political turmoil, which we don't agree with politics that are led there and all that, but among all of that, the Spirit of God is really working. And this is what brings us joy, because what's really interesting is that you go through persecution like this that you describe, but you have a joy. You have a joy. I can see it on your face. And
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I'm not worried about it. I mean, in the midst of the court case, recently my husband was asking our son, so are you worried about this? And Ariel said, no, not really. I mean, we live here, and so this is like, nobody is telling us to go anywhere, to leave. Because if God didn't call us here, then we have no business being here.
I guess,
But if God did call us here, which clearly he did from our Aliyah story, then it's like, you know, you want to fight God?
well,
Go for
you
it.
came for such a time. Yes. you came for such a time as this, because all of this is happening right now there, even with Zeph Porad and all these other messianic believers who are preaching Yeshua, and they know how to reach Jewish people. Really, a lot of them are coming to Messiah. But can you tell me some other stories of persecution? You mentioned some other Jewish believer that her store was closed. And can you just tell us a little more things that are happening there, which are, according to civil law, illegal? But it seems like the chief rabbinate of Israel in the Knesset has a lot of power. And it seems like a church and state is combined there in a law. Is that true? They work together.
I think it's more complicated than that. Okay. In Israel, everything is always more complicated than just, you know, it's this way, and that's it. There's always little factors. The political entity that is over the Misrat Panim, the Ministry of Interior, is the Shas party. And they are ultra-Orthodox Jews who absolutely hate followers of Yeshua, and they also hate Christians. Yeah. And the head of the Misrat Panim is a man named Aryeh Deri. Now, I don't tell you this to get people to hate him. Please don't hate him. Please pray for this man. Yes. Yeah, and his wife Yafa and their 9 children. And we pray for him. And so he is a convicted criminal. He was the head of Shas Party. He was the head of the Ministry of Interior. He was convicted of crimes. He served time for what he did, and as soon as he got back out, he was reinstalled as the head of Shas and the head of the Ministry of Interior. Wow. So that's who's ruling this, is a convicted criminal, which I don't think is right, but okay, that's what's my opinion. But let me give you an example of how the Ministry of Interior thinks. They believe they're above the law. There was a recent court hearing. There are 2 things I want to share with you. There was a ruling. It's not like a law, but it was a ruling from the Vice Attorney General, which is over the Ministry of Interior. So they tell them what to do. And they said that anyone who is here as a citizen in Israel for more than 10 years, you can never remove their citizenship. So even during our son's time in court with his wife, the lawyer mentioned this to the judge and the attorney for the Ministry of Interior. And both the judge and the Ministry of Interior lawyer said, no, we never heard of that before. Where is that written? So their lawyer had to read the whole ruling. They're not informed of things that are going on in the background. Another example, there was a recent ruling that actually a lot of people thought this was us, because we got a lot of calls afterwards and saying, you know, congratulations. And it was like, what? Nothing happened. And then we found out what happened. It was a similar case as ours. It was, you know, a Jewish mother and, of course, her Jewish son. They came from, I think, Ukraine or Russia. And the son married a Gentile, and they wouldn't give his wife citizenship, and they were trying to make her leave. And again, they're breaking up families. That's just evil. We should never break up families. So they went to court, and they won. And the court said to the Ministry of Interior, you need to pay this family 8,000 shekels, which is like nothing compared to all their legal fees, and you need to give this man's wife citizenship. And the Ministry of Interior said, no.
something that Christian community needs to be aware of, because as I mentioned to you before, Bibi Netanyahu is getting unconditional support of Christian community, and he is giving an impression that everything is just happy in Israel, everything is perfect, and that the freedom of religion is there, and it's a perfect democracy, the only democracy in the Middle East. And they are not aware of what is happening to our own, to the believers. So this is very important. Maybe some pressure can be put on Bibi Netanyahu to ease lives of our own. I mean, Christians are supporting Israel on every front you can imagine, and they're getting this great support. So why are we not speaking up for our own? You know.
And like you mentioned, if it's the Shas party that is part of the coalition of the Likud party that is causing those issues, still we have to address it. One thing I do in the biblical teaching side is I try to tell my Orthodox brothers and sisters out there is that we have to remember, as you said, the right of return. And the house of Israel still has to come home. And most of the house of Israel is of different faiths. Who knows what all? I mean, probably many Christians. There are probably many, they may be Muslim, whatever the case may be. But if they're returning home, we should not have to go under the mandate of Judaism in order to be able to return home. That doesn't fulfill prophecy at all.
Right. You know how under the new national law, they describe the Jewishness, the expression of the Jewishness only, but it's actually only the Orthodox. You have to be the Orthodox Jew. That's when you have rights in Israel. So that's why the Jewish people who are believers in Yeshua, they're in danger with that kind of description of the law, because
but you know what? Even because of this kind of mentality on the part of the ultra-Orthodox Jews, I'm talking about the radical ones who are a minority, but they are extremely vocal.
Right.
They are even telling Reform Jews that they're not Jews.
Yes, and Karaite Jews, you know?
And
Karaite Jews, because Karaite Jews, they don't agree with
Talmud.
Plenty of
shtuyot.
They don't agree.
Craziness.
They don't agree with Talmud. They just want the Hebrew scriptures. Yeah. So, well, very good, sister. But thank you for letting us know of what's going on in Israel and making the situation a little bit more real for us, because that's what we need to know, the experiences of believers in Israel. That's how we get the true information of what they are really going through, not only through articles that we read, but we want to talk to a lot of you guys. And I hope that we will go to Israel soon and we can meet one-on-one together.
Oh, come. And you're welcome in our home. We are in the Galilee. We have a beautiful view of the Kinneret, the Sea of Galilee, right out our window.
Wow.
And, if I can add one more word, since you're reaching a lot of Christians with this, when we have groups in our home, many people will come up to us and say, we support the gospel going forth in Israel. We give to the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews.
Right.
Or they'll say, we give to CUFI, Christians United for Israel. And we used to keep silent about this because we don't want to badmouth anyone. But I think it's really important to state that almost all the money that is collected from CUFI goes to Rabbi Eckstein of the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews. And some of that money is used in a good way. It's helping widows and orphans and helping some people make aliyah. But some of it is also going to anti-missionary groups. And so Christian money is supporting people who are persecuting us. I think that's just wrong.
I'm so glad you mentioned this, sister, because I did hear about this, about Rabbi Eckstein, and I'm getting a lot of requests of people asking us, is that okay to support this fellowship?
Please don't.
Right. And I have heard from many other sources, and now I'm hearing it from you. So I'm really thankful you brought this up. I'm very thankful you brought this up, because we need to really know. We are right now truly watching how to support Israel the wise way.
Right.
How to support it the
using
really
wisdom.
truly Christian way. To use the wisdom. We stand with Israelis, but most of all, out of all of that, we are standing with Israeli believers.
That's the best.
That's who we are
to
standing
pray
with.
for the body of Messiah here and support the local body.
That's who we support. We support the body of the Messiah in Israel, and we want the gospel to go forth to the Jewish people.
Amen.
And that's the right way
Amen.
to support Israel. Not the politics, not just support the body of Messiah. So, very nice. Do you want to tell the believers when they are, because a lot of them are going to visit Israel. So maybe you want them to find you and visit you?
Oh, that would be wonderful. Yeah, they could. Actually, you can visit our
Facebook
website.
page, our website. There we go.
It's heartofgod.org. But God is spelled the way I grew up, G-D.
Okay, G-D.
Yeah, we don't write out the name.
Yes,
out of respect and honor for his name.
Sure.
And so it's heartofgod.org. And we'd love it. We love hosting groups in our home for an evening of worship. And then we serve dinner up on our merpeset. We have one of those flat roofs that overlooks the Sea of Galilee and the Golan and the Jordan Valley.
Wow.
Beautiful, absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
And yeah, that's our hope, is to raise up informed intercessors for Israel. Sure. It was God's idea, by the way. It wasn't mine.
Yes.
I believe it. All right. Shalom, Chavrim. Thank you for watching, and we trust this has been a blessing to you guys out there as well. And of course, Heart of God, G-D.org. Visit their website. I know it'll be a blessing to you, and it's been a blessing for us having Sister Carolyn Hyde on with us today here on Israeli News Live. Shalom, shalom.
Shalom.